First of all, thank you very much for being with us today. I'm very happy that you were interested to learn about ethics because there's a lot of people who take for granted that ethics is something natural, that they don't need to have session on ethics because ethics is kind of like a second reflex for them. They made a career, they were always ethical. So for them, everything is taken for granted. Well, today I call that an awareness session. So I'm going to try to take people out of their comfort zone and to make them reflect on some ethical dilemmas that we might be facing on a regular basis, and that sometimes we might not always make the right decision. So just before we go any further, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, I'm not artificial intelligence. I'm a human, and I had a pretty bad cold about 2 days ago. So I just got my voice back. So if from time to time my voice goes down, it's not your internet connection. It's because I'm a human. Okay, all that being said, I'm very ethical and admitting that the problem is on my side, not your side. So to start off, one thing that I always like to have people realize is that whenever we talk about ethics, a reputation that have taken years to build can be destroyed in minutes if a company is deemed to be unethical, or if someone working for that company is deemed to be unethical, or sometimes it might be someone that is one of your business partner, one of your supplier. And a lot of people always focus on to say, well, hey, we're going to make sure that our employees behave ethically. But you have to keep in mind your supply chain, they're an extension of yourself. So because when it comes to reputational risk, you will be facing reputational risk if you're not monitoring what your supply chain is doing, what your business partners are doing. So those are things that are very important. And sometimes people take for granted that because we're asking people to sign a code of ethics, that everyone fully understand what are ethical dilemmas, and they think that everything is probably okay. And people sign, for them it's a waiver, we're all good, we don't have to worry. Well, no, if there is one risk right now that executives need to take very seriously is ethical risk. The problem is, whenever we're talking about a legal risk or we're talking about a financial risk, you can always manage it in a way that you're going to try to mitigate it up to an acceptable level. But when it comes to a reputational risk, that's a risk that is really, really hard to mitigate. And it's even hard to assess because whenever there is allegation of non-ethical behaviors, well, the first thing that happens, it hits the social media and then it can become viral. And at that point, you won't even know what to do, or the time of reaction need to be so quick that sometimes we're unfortunately not well prepared. So with that in mind, I do believe, I'm just trying to admit everyone, okay, because there were some people that were just in the waiting room. So one of the first thing that I want to go through with you is something which is clear is we all want to avoid headlines. And over the last years, there has been a lot of different companies that made the headlines for the bad reason. It was mostly for unethical behaviors. It was not technically they stole money. They might have admitted unethically. They might have done all kind of other issues that we have to be careful with, because whenever it comes to your reputation, there were studies that showed that once there is allegation of non-ethical behaviors, it takes an average 80 weeks for your reputation to go back to what it was before the allegation. And some people will say, well, 80 weeks, that's a year and a half. Yes, but being an accountant, I would also say that's 560 days that you're going to go to bed at night and be worried about what will happen tomorrow. You're probably going to tell yourself, hey, what's going to happen to me? What if someone turns out and hit the media with something that I did, or that someone related to me, or someone part of my organization did? How am I going to be able to handle that? So those are things that we need to be very careful with. And a lot of people will tell you, well, Mark, that's part of risk management. And I agree that we always say the zero risk doesn't exist. You're going to try to mitigate it up to what they consider to be an acceptable level. But the problem is, what is an acceptable level? So then people will tell me, well, Mark, it's based on your risk appetite. Okay. If there is one thing I want to make clear, I'm quite sure that none of us woke up this morning and said, you know what? I feel like I would eat risk today. I don't think no one felt that way. And no one said tonight, I think I'm going to go at the risk buffet because I'm in need of risk. No, I'm quite sure that if there is one diet we would like to be on, is a diet of risk. So you know what? I think I already had enough risk in my life. I think I can handle it. Well, I always tell those people, before you tell me that you have a risk appetite, I have one question for you. What's your appetite for accountability? Because you will see so many people are afraid of accountability. They never want to be accountable for anything. If you tell them that they're not going to be accountable, it's unbelievable the risk appetite they have. But on the other hand, if you say that's your project, you're going to be responsible for it, you're going to be accountable for it, oh my God, now they have a very, very, very low risk appetite, which is just normal. And I always tell people, you might have personally a risk appetite, which is higher than the one from your organization. But be careful because you are representing your organization. So try to always say, how can I have appetite for a risk that I cannot control, which is the reputational risk. And I know you might say, well, Mark, we can always control it. We have like communication department that will mitigate and will spin it off. No, you might have 5 spin doctors on your board, and I don't care. Believe me, once there is allegation of wrongdoing on the social media, usually within 48 hours, people will decide if you're guilty or not. That's as fast as it will go. And it's not like in court when you can actually come up and tell your version of it. No. On the social media, allegation, people think you're guilty. Hey, and even if you're getting away with it, they're going to say, yeah, it's probably because they're rich, they paid someone, or they have good network. That's why it happened. So you want to avoid as much as possible. And we have to keep in mind that now the new generation and a lot of people do not tolerate non-ethical behaviors anymore. And they all have their own definition of what is considered to be non-ethical. One thing for sure we know is that everyone is talking about corporate social responsibility. Everyone says that this is perfect. We all agree with that. But we have to keep in mind that with corporate social responsibility, sometimes it's not always easy because everyone should have a fair share of the market. Well, if you have a competitive edge over your competitors, are you really want to slow down and say, yeah, maybe I'm not going to bid on that job. I'm going to let my other colleague have some because, hey, I need to have only a fair share of the market. I should not dominate the market. It's easy to say that we all believe in corporate social responsibility, but when we're facing a dilemma out of which we might actually maybe increase our presence on the market or something like that, it might become a challenge at that point to always act ethically. One thing also that people love to talk about is ESG. Honestly, I didn't meet much people in my life that said to me, Mark, I don't believe in ESG. That's a waste of time. We're not doing anything there. No, most people like to name drop ESG in a conversation, like to promote it as much as they can. But keep in mind, if you're not doing it, that's worse. If you're not doing it, don't talk about it. If you are actually really promoting and believing in ESG, well, make sure you deliver to what you're actually giving in terms of expectation for the people. Because lately, if you go on Google and you go ESG, what will come on top is greenwashing. So greenwashing, people who actually make you believe that they care about the environment, but they don't really. They're going to talk to you about pink washing. Pink washing is when people say, yes, we offer equality in terms of chances for man and woman, and it turns out that it's not true. Then we usually call that pink washing. And there is also rainbow washing. So rainbow washing means when people say, yes, we believe in diversity, inclusivity, and we support Pride during Pride Month or Pride Week or whatever, And yes, they support pride during that time. But after that, they don't do anything to make it live within their organization. Well, they're going to be labeled as rainbow washing. So this is why we have to be careful, because now to behave ethically becomes a challenge. It's not what you might have learned 20, 30 years ago. It's what it is in 2023. And today, I'm going to try to talk about it as much as I can, because it's always evolving. But one thing that we have to focus on before we go any further is that stakeholders, whoever they are, they're more and more looking for transparency, accountability. And all those words are nice and easy. And we always like to talk about, oh yeah, I'm fully transparent, I'm an ethical person, and fully accountable. Well, you better make sure you are. And you make sure that within your organization, it is the way it goes. Because sometimes you have your executives and you have your board members, and it's always the big confusion between, is it a governance issue or is it a management issue? And then along the way, it almost seemed like transparency goes off a little bit, and then people are afraid of being accountable because they're afraid of consequences or the perception. So in theory, this is beautiful. Then we need to make sure it does actually lives within your organization. So one thing that I always like to make the difference between is ethics and compliance. And sometimes it's kind of funny because you might have like someone within your organization who's the chief ethics and compliance officer, or you might have an ethics and compliance program. You put those two words together, to me, they mean totally different. Compliance. Compliance means to follow laws, rules, policy, and all those stuff. In law, we refer to that as the letter of the law. When it comes to ethics, ethics is a little bit more. Ethics is the spirit of the law. And sometimes there is a difference between the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. And we refer to that as flaws in the law. So there is flaws in the law. It means that when the legislator wrote the draft for the new law, they might have made a mistake. They might have forgot to put some elements, or they might have wrote it in a way that it's kind of confusing and we can give different interpretation to it. So that would be considered to be a flaw in the law. So it means the spirit of the law would not totally match the letter of the law. And at that exact moment, there are people that are experts, subject matter expert, in identifying the flaws in the law and then using and abusing them. And these people, I always refer to them as the CLO, not for the chief legal officer, but for the chief loophole officer. You always have those people who are only there to find loopholes. They come and see you and they say, I just wanted to double check with you. You know that technically they try to find the loophole, and they always present something which is a little bit sugar-coated, but they always trying to find the loophole. It's tough. Sometimes to make fun, I like to refer to them as the corporate teenagers. You have a teenager, he wants to go out. You said, okay, no problem, go out, but don't come home too late. Next thing you know, he walks in at 2 a.m. The following day, in the afternoon, when he wakes up, you sit down with your teenager and you say, hey, why did you came home so late? He said, well, you weren't clear. I said, what do you mean? I said, not too late. He says, Dad, that's the issue. You go to bed at 10 at night. For you, 2 a.m. is late. On weekend, I go to bed at 4 a.m. So to me, 2 a.m. is not late. You get the picture? So within your organization, there's always people like that. They always have an answer to justify why they found the loophole. And that's usually, I call those people short-term gain, long-term pain. They will actually find a solution to your issue, but long-term, this will not be solved. An example of that I sometimes give to people just to make sure that we're all on the same page. I tell them, I said, if you want to know who are those people, it's pretty easy. If you ask them, what you're doing right now, do you think it's okay? Their first answer will be, hey, it's totally legit. I would never do anything which is against the law. Okay, so we have 50% of the answer. You are doing something which is legal. But the second part, is that also ethical? Because you might do something which is totally legal, but might be perceived as being totally unethical. And next thing you know, you're going to make the first page of the newspaper for the bad reason. So we have to be careful, okay? Do not promote the chief loopholes officers within your organization, okay? Be careful. And what you have, well, you need to keep in mind and say, why are they acting that way? Because I don't think someone says, in my career, I would like to be the chief loophole officer. I want to be totally legit, but totally non-ethical and take advantage of everything I can. Like I don't believe in that. I think people are not that bad. So let's try to understand, why would people be kind of like motivated to do something wrong or to take advantage of a situation? Because if we want to talk about ethics, we need to understand more about how we are as human and what might be the challenge. But before we look into that, there's a couple of things I would like to bring to your attention. As individual, we need to ask ourselves our question. One question: are we good or bad people? You know, and sometimes you're having dinner with someone and they say, "Oh, Mark, you always think that people are bad until proven otherwise." And you say, "Yeah, but you always think people are nice until they take advantage of you." And then that's the big discussion when you don't know what to say, who's wrong, who's right. Well, I have the answer for you. If you took some criminology classes, one of the first things they teach you, they say when you were born, you were asocial. So you were not social at all. It's the people around you that told you what was right from wrong. Don't believe me? Think of a kid who's playing in a sandbox. Another kid comes around. The kid is playing with his toy. The new kid who actually comes around, the first thing he's going to go is go toward the kid in the sandbox to take his toy away. The reaction of the kid in the sandbox will be to push the kid who's coming his way or to hit the kid with the toy. This is what kids do. I'm sorry, I have a grandson, he's 2.5 years old, and that's what he does. Then we tell them, no, no, you don't do that. You share your toy, you play with your friends, you don't fight with friends. Like, we tell these asocial type of young babies what to do and what not to do, which is all good. They go to school, they go to university, they go to the workplace, they perform, they get promotion after promotion. Now they're part of the C-level suite. They made it. They really made it. And they strongly believe that whenever they transpire ethics. Okay, I'm quite sure that they strongly believe that. So what happened is there was a study that was made in 2019 by Forbes magazine. And what they did, they wanted to know what type of behavior did the top executives add. So they took the top executive of the Fortune 500 companies and they made their survey. The conclusion, the two top personality type that came out were narcissistic and sociopath. So at this point, you might say, oh, I finally found what is the problem with my boss? Asocial with narcissistic and sociopathic personality type. No, don't go that way. That's not the goal of today's awareness session. I like to make you laugh, but still, that's not the point. The point is, you have to keep in mind, executives strongly believe in ethics, strongly believes in internal control, but they also strongly believe it applies to everyone within the organization except them. They think that as executive, they don't have to comply to that. Have some board member and talk to them about the code of ethics. Yeah, that's right. We have one for our employees. They never say, hey, we have one that we need to comply with. Code of ethics applies to board members, apply to suppliers, apply to a lot of people who are dealing with you. So you need to keep that in mind. And then as human beings, we have some bias. So without even knowing, the way we act and react very often might not always be what is considered to be the most ethical way to do things. 5 elements, 5 different bias that we might have, okay? First one, there was a university who did a study. What they did, they took a table, they left some money unattended. There was $150 unattended. There was a hidden camera. People would walk by. Out of 12 people, only 2 took the money. It was great. We did the same thing, but instead of money, they put some objects, could be headset, whatever, same value. $150. 9 people out of 12 took it. Then they asked those people, why did you took it? They said, well, you never told me not to do so. I said, well, you should have known. They said, hey, there wasn't a sign that said I wasn't allowed to take it. They said, yes, but there wasn't a sign that says you can take it either. And then they said, why are we even having this discussion? We didn't do anything wrong. We did not take any money. So one of the bias we have is whenever we're facing an ethical dilemma, if it doesn't involve money, we think it's okay. We don't even have to ask ourselves, is it right or wrong? Because there's no money involved. So it means conflict of interest. No worries. If there is no money involved, it's all good. Just a friend helping another friend. So be careful. That's the first bias. Sorry. The second one, well, another university, they took a vending machine. So what they did, they voluntarily modified it. So when people would go, so let's say I go in front of the machine, I put the money in, I make my selection, get my can of pop. As I'm about to leave, I hear ding, ding, ding. The money is coming back. Isn't that beautiful? Human, we always reproduce what I've worked. So I say, wow, that's cool. Take the money, put it back, make the same selection, get another can of pop. Now I have 2 cans of pop and my money back. What do I do next? I call my friend Richard. Richard comes in, does the same thing. Richard called Rosalind. And in the end, the machine is empty. But the question is, why did I call Richard? It's pretty easy. Because I didn't want to ask myself if what I was doing was right or wrong. I said, hey, if Richard is doing it, if Rosalind is doing it, and everyone else, it must be okay. So the bias that we have in terms of ethics is that sometimes we don't even ask ourselves what I'm doing or what I'm about to do. Is it right or wrong? We just say, hey, everyone is doing it anyway, so it must be okay. For example, we would say, hey, that's what people do in my industry, or all my competitors are doing it. If I'm not doing it, well, I'm going to be losing an advantage. So don't go there. The third one, kind of funny too. This one goes, they took a lady, very nice and friendly. She was serving coffee, best coffee ever, top-notch service, But when she would give you back your money, she would give you back an extra $10. Out of 12 person, 11 came back and gave the money back by saying, made a mistake. I gave you a $10 bill, not a $20 bill. You gave me the change for a 20, so there goes your $10 back. Everything was beautiful. We did the same thing, but this time, watch that one, with someone that was rude. It was long, it was not good. People left offended, but she still gave $10 back. Too much. Well, only 3 person came back. So then they went to see the other 9 and they said, why? 4 of them said, well, she made me lose my time. My time is precious. There's a cost to it. So that's it. But then the other 5, you know what they answered? Well, you know what? It must be her karma. Oh my God, these people self-proclaim themselves karma God. They decided that, hey, that's wrong. That's it. She deserved it. So be careful. Remember when I was young, my mom used to tell me, Mark, if you're stealing from a crook, it's not stealing. Well, imagine when I started taking my law courses. What a reality check did I ever had? But it didn't make sense. But sometimes we think that, hey, yeah, we might not be doing the right thing, but you know what? They deserve it. They don't deserve better. So be careful. Don't go down that road either. The fourth one was not a university study. It was actually done by a lady, which is called Elizabeth Holmes. You might know Mrs. Holmes. She was very popular because she was the CEO of a company called Turbulence. And what they had done, they were saying that with a drop of your blood, they can actually tell you what was your medical record. And that was beautiful. And she even said that she had clinical study to support it. Okay, turns out it was a fraud. It was not true. She ended up in court. And at that time, a journalist asked her, he says, Mrs. Holmes, aren't you afraid to go to jail? And she said, no, not at all. So I'm like, you know what? I'm sorry, but you might go to jail. She said, hey, I'm telling you, I'm not going to go to jail. And he goes like, why are you so sure? She said, it's easy because I am good looking. He said, sorry? She goes, yes, I'm good looking. People are always nicer with people that are good looking. So they always get away with more stuff than the people that are not as good looking. So she said, I'm good looking, I'm going to get away with it. Okay, 2023, she's in jail, unfortunately for her, fortunately for us. Otherwise, we would live in a totally chaos society. So it didn't stand. But still, you know, sometimes it's true that people who might be good looking might get away with things that others won't. Think of a kid. Sometimes you go see friends, they have kids, and there is always this one little kid. When you look right in the eyes of that kid, you see evil. You say, this is a terrible kid. He's evil. And then someone will tell you, Mark, don't say that. Look at him. He's so cute. Look at him. He looks like an angel. I don't care. He's the devil in disguise. What can I say more? No, I'm just joking, but we have to be careful. It's not because we like the presence, we like the appearance of the person that technically we're going to say, oh, yeah, must be okay. Good looking person, seems powerful, got the power suit on. Hey, all good. Must have good reason to do whatever they did. No, should not go that way. And the fourth one, the fifth one, the last one is sometimes if we can relate to people, we might be more tolerant to say, well, you know what? If I would be in their position, I would probably do the same. And that's very unethical. Okay, don't go down that road. Give you an example. You might all have watched the series on Netflix, Ozark. So I have a friend who told me, hey, Mark, I watch Ozark. So now I finally understand what you do for a living. I say, what, you think I'm a professional money launderer for a Mexican drug cartel? He goes, no, no, no. He says, I know you're a forensic accountant. You're fighting people who are laundering money. So now I fully understand the people you're dealing with. I say, okay, so what's your takeaway from it? He goes, well, my takeaway is that Marty and his wife are nice people. I say, okay. And he goes, well, I hope that nothing bad gonna happen to them. Well, you know what? Like I told him, I said, I'm sorry. They are professional money launderer for a Mexican drug cartel. They need to have a bad ending, okay? Either they go to jail, their car explode, I don't know, but something bad need to happen to those people. They cannot be spending their life on the beach in Tahiti and sipping mojitos. That wouldn't make sense. Otherwise, it's a total society, which is chaos. But sometimes we kind of tolerate things that should not be tolerated because we kind of picture ourselves doing it and say, hey, I would have done it too if I would have had the chance. So don't go there. So that's 5 bias that we have as individual when it comes to ethics. And then on top of that, like if that wasn't enough, there is something which is called the seduction of fraud diamond. It used to be the fraud triangle. And now what they did, they added up another element. So you might have heard the fraud triangle before. So basically what it says is that for someone to do something which is unethical, well, there need to be a temptation. Like it could be, hey, they want to have more money. Or then people think that most of the time they want to have more money. People who committed non-ethical behavior, most of the time was because they were suffering, you know, from what? Professional performance anxiety. They were afraid not to get the promotion. They were afraid to be set aside. They were afraid to be demoted. They were afraid to lose their job. As crazy as that. Because they were afraid, they were suffering from anxiety, they did things that were unethical. Nothing else to support it. And then opportunity. There needs to be an opportunity, or you can even create it if it's not already there. But the problem is sometimes the opportunity will come from the fact there is a lack of internal control or blindness trust. Sometimes people trust everyone within the organization. They say, oh, hey, I trust this person. I'm quite sure that everything must be okay. He's a nice person, must be all good. Be careful. Then we have the entitlement. People think they're entitled to it. Whatever they're doing is because they deserve it. They're not getting paid enough. Their boss is stupid. They should get the promotion. They didn't get it. So now that's their way of getting back at the organization, whatever. And the last one, the boldness. People are not even afraid. That's the new one from the fraud triangle. They added that one, boldness. People are not afraid. They're not afraid of consequences. Hey, first time offender, no violence involved, gonna get away with a slap on the wrist. And the problem is exactly there. When people make the intellectual shortcut, which is the following, they're going to look at when they're going to be facing an ethical dilemma. What could be the consequences versus then they're going to compare with a cost benefit. How much is it going to cost me? And what am I going to get out of it? So they're taking an ethical dilemma and converting that into a cost benefit decision. Don't do that. Honestly, if there is one takeaway from my presentation today, don't make that intellectual shortcut. It will not stand the road. But we might look at some different economic factor. As I said, people might go to financial hardship. They don't want to lose their job. It could be greed. They want to buy more luxury because of economic downturns. Might be all kind of reason. In 2023, we see that now. Increasing desperation. They think there's no chance for them to ever get promoted. So they still need the money, but they won't get the promotion. So they feel good about it. So that is something tough. Companies bending rules for profits. Hey, my boss is doing it anyway. My organization is doing it. So why shouldn't I do it? And it's really funny because it comes down to what we usually call, what's the culture of your organization? And I always like to have people laugh, and actually they don't really laugh, but I say the culture of your organization is equal to the most unethical behavior that the management is willing to tolerate. That's what it is. If someone is behaving totally unethically and the executives are not doing anything, well, there you go. You have your new statement of values in your organization. This is your culture. Don't turn a blind eye on it. This is your culture. You're willing to tolerate non-ethical behavior. Well, you have a culture of non-ethical behavior. That's what it goes. Psychological factors. Well, there is some people are going to do something bad just for the rush of it. Hackers used to be like that. There is people within the organization. You tell them, hey, buddy, you're the chief loophole officer. Do your little magic. You're a creative accountant. A stupid person will do it. Why? The thrill, the rush. Hey, it's something that gives me a rush. Okay, don't go there, okay? That doesn't make sense. So social cultural pressure, peer pressure from our friends, from our community, our value system. We value money so much. Or sometimes people say we value excellence. I see people at university cheating, and I tell them, why are you cheating? They said, you don't understand where I come from. Having A+ is essential, and A is not enough. I had no choice. I felt the pressure of my community, of my family. I needed to excel, and my only way to excel was to cheat. Yeah, doesn't stand the road, but that's what it is. Opportunity factor, as I said, lack of check. People now will commit unethical behavior on the internet because they believe that they will be able to remain anonymous. Well, I agree, but that's not good. Yes, you're going to have access to my presentation after. I'm going to be there for you. And people believe that there is limited risk of getting caught. Hey, my company is so busy. The amount is minimal. It's under what we call the amount that the auditor is going to be looking for. So it's under the threshold. We're all good. Don't go there. And this one should make you reflect a little bit. Within your organization, if you're telling comforting lies to people, you're going to be so popular. If you're telling the unpleasant truth, well, there won't be that many people around you. And it was funny because on the weekend, I was having my grandson with me. We're watching The Lion King. So, okay, it's cool. So we're watching Lion King and blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, at one point, there is like the lion who's talking to the zebra. And they're actually just like, almost like a think tank of what they're going to do in the jungle, you know, and they collaborate together. They get along well. I was watching that and I was telling myself, I should put on Discovery Channel or National Geographic because I need to tell my grandson one morning, the lion will wake up and he's going to have an appetite for the zebra. He's going to eat the zebra. That's the way it goes. Doesn't matter if it was his friends or not, if they were part of the think tank. Now he's on the menu eating the zebra. That's it. That's all. That's the truth. But You know, there is sometimes we prefer, oh, everyone lives in harmony, it's beautiful. Like, I'm not saying tell people that the lion will eat the zebra, but I'm just saying sometimes tell the truth. I saw so many people, I sit on various boards and we ask, so how are we doing? Do we have any risks that we should be made aware of? Oh no, everything's under control. Everything is okay. And you see people all happy. Yes, yes, it's fun to be sitting on that board. Everything is always good. Yeah, damn right. Doesn't make sense. If our competitors are having issues, well, they are in the same industry as we are. We are competitive. The issues they're having, there's good probability that we have it. So tell me the truth. Is it just because we're lucky enough that haven't been disclosed yet? Might be the situation. And sometimes you wonder, why don't anything change within my organization? Because of the CIO. Okay, not the chief information officer, the chief indecision officer, the person who suffers from professional performance anxiety, doesn't want anything to change, but he surrounds himself really well. VP red tape, VP fear, VP status quo, VP skepticism. He's really well surrounded. No, I'm just joking. It's very, very, very sarcastic, but sometimes it's true. People don't want to change anything. Not always because they're anxious, because sometimes they say, well, hold on for a second. If we go ahead with this new policy, it means that people will question what we were doing before this policy, and this may raise some concern, and we might be exposed to some class action or whatever. No, be careful. Do the right thing. It doesn't matter if it is something wrong in the past. Do the right thing now, and you're going to deal with what was wrong in the past. But you cannot turn a blind eye and say, hey, because whenever we talk about ethics, and usually people, that's the one they love the most about my slides. We need to prove. I'm going to give you an example of someone being ethical or not. So Winnie is talking to someone at his place. He goes, hey, I work the drive-thru at McDonald's. And then he goes to a special function, dress well, look good. Then Winnie says to someone, hey, I was an associate at a multinational firm in the service industry with revenues over $20 billion, and I did serve as a liaison to the automotive industry. Winnie number two is not lying, but is he really being totally ethical in what he's saying? It's legal, but is it ethical? And if you work in HR, you might have seen a lot of resume of people that after a while, you hire those people and you said, you know what? The decision should have been to hire the person who produced the resume, not that employee, because the resume was so impressive. But it turns out that the person wasn't able to do the job. So, just joking. Like this slide too. This slide, why is the cat walking so peacefully when there is all of those guard dogs? You know why? Because there is too many guard dogs. All of these dogs think it's someone else's responsibility, not their responsibility. That's dangerous. Within your organization, especially if you have a large organization, you might have a chief risk officer, you might have a chief compliance officer, you might have a chief legal officer, you might have someone who's head of internal control, and then you have your CFO, and then everyone thinks it's someone else's responsibility to monitor that or to oversee controls or whatever. And the next thing you know, we don't know. Because keep in mind, whenever something unethical happens, one of the first questions that people will ask is, where was the board? And then the board will ask, where was internal audit? It will all trigger down, but you have to be careful. Sometimes have someone be held accountable for ethics. And within your organization, there will be people that will be very good to identify things that are non-ethical. Unfortunately, we call those people whistleblowers. I don't like that. It's not nice. If I say, hi, my name is Mark, I'm the whistleblower in my organization. You're going to say, hi, Mark. You're not going to be that keen to talk with me. On the other hand, if instead of saying I'm a whistleblower, I say, I'm an ethics ambassador. Ethics ambassador. Ain't that beautiful? I say, hi, my name is Mark. I'm the ethics ambassador at my organization. Wow. People will open up to me. They're going to be happy. So if you want the people who are ethics ambassadors to really be there to help you out, well, make sure that no one will retaliate against them. make sure that you will promote the ethics ambassadors, not the chief loophole officer. So that's very important. So it comes down to a couple of questions, because my session is what I like to call an awareness session. So just to bring things to your head and say, geez, maybe I've not realized it, or I never thought of it this way. Might be something interesting to share with my colleague or whatever. So a couple of questions that are always fun to ask, which comes down to, hold on for a second, trying to admit everyone. Okay, so what does it mean to be ethical in business? I like to tell people, you know what? Best definition of ethics is do the right thing when no one is watching. Because you know what? Too often, if you're monitoring someone, you're watching someone, believe me, everyone will do the right thing. But if you think no one is watching you and you can get away with something. So to be ethical in business is to make sure to do the right thing, which is based on the value of the organization, the mission, the best standard in the industry, and then act according to it. Do the right thing, even if no one is watching. Why be ethical? The answer could be, why not be ethical? And if you sit on a board, I would say because you have a fiduciary duty. And if you do not actually show that you did some due diligence, well, there might be some class action lawsuit against you. Your directors and officers insurance policy might not cover you, and they might go after you for failure to prevent. Because if you turn a blind eye, which was pretty popular years ago, well, in 2023, you turn a blind eye on something, that won't work. You might say, yes, but no one ever told me. Yes, but in the media, they were talking about your competitor who was having those issues. Why didn't you brought that to discussion with the board? If you're ever interested, I can send that to you.
I'm sure, sorry.
Hold on for a second. Okay, so if ever you're interested, I can send you the Department of Justice in the United States. They brought up a list of 166 questions that a board member should be able to answer in order to prove that they performed their due diligence. You're going to see, once you go through those 166 questions, you're not going to ask them all during the same meeting, because that wouldn't make sense. But you choose a couple of them, you're going to have some very interesting discussion during your board meeting. So if you're ever interested, send me an email. I'll flip that over to you. Another question: who's in the best position to enforce ethical behavior? Well, you know what? Everyone within the organization, from the entry-level employees up to the chair of the board. And it also includes your business partners, could be your clients, could be your suppliers. They are there to enforce ethical behavior. Let me tell you something. If you or someone from your organization is doing something bad, don't be surprised if one of your competitor calls you and say, hey, Mark, by the way, one of your employees is doing this unethical behavior, like offering bribes or corruption payment. Why is he going to call you? Because he doesn't want the industry and him also to get a bad reputation, because they might say, oh yeah, we know in construction, everyone is corrupted. So this general contractor might be as corrupted as the other one. They don't want that. They don't want the heat of having law enforcement or people watching them. So they try to avoid. Okay, so can you hear me right now? I'm going to take it as a yes. Okay. So
yep, we can hear you, Mark.
Okay, great. Thanks. So the next one is, what is the role of the board in ensuring ethical behavior? We used to say tone at the top. 2023, we say conduct from the top. It's not just to invest in programs, to let people know to use ChatGPT to come up with just about the best ethics and compliance program you can come up with. That's one thing, great, but it's the way you behave. Executive need to lead by examples, okay? People are going to look up at them and they want to make sure that it's actually what they're looking for. So we make sure that you're looking exactly into it. Make sure that you're promoting it. Make sure that if you see a chief loophole officer, you're going to tell the person, you're a short-term gain, long-term pain. Sorry, buddy. But if you see the ethics ambassador, promote that person, put lights on that person, because he is the one or she is the one who will protect the image of your organization. That's your risk mitigation when it comes to reputational risk. You want that person to be in the spotlight. What's the role of the audit committee? Well, ask the question, get the answer, validate those answers, discuss, try to find out why. In 2022, 2023, is the audit committee the prime enforcer? No, it's everyone. Everyone who sit on the board should be enforcing good behavior. Whenever we hear something, it could be from the media, from someone in our network says, you know what, be careful. In your industry, there is some challenges when it comes to ethical behavior. Or we might have heard that something related to your organization. Ask the question, prevent. I told you, you never want to be accused of failure to prevent. We have seen that right now in the UK on numerous cases. People are suing the board for failure to prevent. So you don't want to be sitting on at that table. How can board encourage ethical behavior? Well, invest, make sure that if you don't have all the knowledge, the required knowledge, well, that you're going to surround yourself with advisors. You can have some board advisors, people just going to come in, share with you their expertise, but you turn to the right people, okay? Because when it comes to ethics, there is some subject matter experts, and there is some self-proclaimed subject matter expert, like our picture of Winnie the Pooh. Be careful, okay? Talk to people, say, hey, what's my issues right now, and how can I mitigate it to an acceptable risk? And what's the action plan? So make sure that you're looking for a result, not just, oh yes, we hired an external consultant, they're going to come back to us with a report in about maybe next quarter or the quarter after. No, you want something quick, because when it comes to reputational risk, time change so fast. You want to be ahead of the wave, not after. What questions should board ask? Well, ask questions that people don't want to hear. I'll give you an example. SNC-Lavalin, everyone heard about their problem they had in Libya. You know, people, the executive said, if we would have known, we would have took action. And I'm quite sure they would. Problem was, if I would have sat on the board, I would have asked 3 questions. And always remember those 3 questions. The first one, hey, what's our winning rate when we bid on project in Libya compared to our winning rate when we bid on project outside of Libya? Second question, what's the profit we make on the project that we win in Libya versus the one outside of Libya? And then the third question is, why are we so successful? What do we do? What's our secret recipe? I'm a board member, you can share it with me. And if it comes down, well, we deals with politically exposed person, and we create companies that might help us, then don't tell me you didn't know. And finally, what role can management assume? Well, the leading role. It's not to your employee to lead, it's for you, your leaders. Promote ethics. Have some little clips, little videos, 5-7 minutes, that talks about what are best practice. Why should we actually have best practice? Corporate culture, how does a board best protect and preserve it? By being totally transparent, by promoting and rewarding the right people, asking the right question. What tools do they have at their disposal? Plenty of tools. They have artificial intelligence, they have some very good people, but they have their employees, they have their supply chain. Make sure that everyone wants to be an ethics ambassador, that they feel good to talk about ethics, that they're not shy to talk about whistleblowing, to use the whistleblower hotline. What type of situation threatens the culture is what you're going to be willing to tolerate. As I said, the culture of an organization is defined by the worst behavior that the management or the top executives are willing to tolerate. If you turn blind eye for whichever reason, well, in 2023, there will be consequences. You need to test on an ongoing basis. Don't tell people in advance, next week, we're going to be monitoring what you're doing. Don't do that. Do it on a daily basis. Listen to little things, watch out, be attentive. encourage people to come up. Don't call that the whistleblowing hotline. Call that an ethics line. People will use it just to validate, to make sure that the way they actually are perceiving the situation, is it the right way to perceive it? That's important. Make sure that you will enforce the rules and regulation. If people do not comply, there will be consequences. Make sure to train people. Don't call that a training session, because most executives don't believe that training applies to them anymore. Instead, call that awareness session. Don't ignore signs of and rumors of corruption. If there is someone talking to you about something, listen, question, stick to the fact, okay? That's important. That is something that comes up to you. And as a conclusion, well, ethics and compliance does not work in a vacuum. Ethics is way much more than just a code of ethics. It has to live within the organization. You need to promote it. You need to provide all kind of real life case scenario to your employees. Make it fun. People should be looking forward to see the next little videos. What are they going to talk about? Ethical dilemmas. Which type of dilemma will it be this time? It's near Christmas. Is it going to be something talking about gift or stuff like that? So those are things that we need to keep in mind. And one thing that we have to realize is that you cannot afford to ignore realities, because it's going to come and bite you back. And sometimes when you are in the situation that you're facing an ethical dilemma, you might ask yourself, well, hey, if I do it, will ever someone know about it or find out? Answer for you in 2023, yes. It's not if, it's when and how is that going to be brought to light. So don't go there. Secondly, you might ask yourself, well, what will be the consequences for me if I get caught? The consequences are not only for you. Yes, there'll be consequences for you. There'll be consequences for your family, for your friends, for your employer, for your professional association if you're a professional member. All of those, okay? You're not going to be the only one picking up the tab for the bad things you did. There will be a lot of consequences. You don't want to go there. You're not good at it. And sometimes you're going to say, yes, but Mark, I had no choice. I had to be loyal to my friends. They asked me to do them a favor, and we're friends. I didn't feel good to say no. But let me tell you something. If loyalty is very important to you, be careful. In the court of law, sometimes loyalty goes from being loyal to be part of a crime. You're considered to be a crime partner. Be loyal to people that are ethical, that respect laws. Hey, I totally support that. Don't be loyal to unethical people or people who breaks the law, because that makes you a criminal. That's as easy as that. And you didn't spend the most part of your professional life being good to end up bad, So, but sometimes we feel the pressure. We don't know how to say no. And a couple of buzzwords if you want to finish a conversation, and then I will stop talking. So open up if you have a few questions. One thing is that one good line is when you sit around the board table or whatever, and someone is just trying to promote something which it might not be totally ethical, but seems to have the support of the others. Just ask the person, say, hey, if you cannot do the time, don't do the crime. It makes so much sense. Like, if you're not willing to pay for the consequences of what you did or what you're about to do, well, just don't do it. It's as easy as that. It's no rocket science. Hey, if I wouldn't feel good to have my face on the social media to say Mark is unethical, well, I'm going to behave ethically. That's as easy as that. Even though I might make a lot of money by doing unethical things and having no one find out, I'm not going to do it because I'm not willing to pay the price for it. And the last one, this one I did not come up with. It was Machiavelli who came up with it, but he was a pretty bad guy long time ago. What this guy said was kind of true. He said, sometimes it's better to be feared and respected than to be loved and abused. And you know what? Very often, when you're going to be facing ethical dilemma, your big dilemma will not be to say, is it right or wrong? Is to say, how am I going to tell the person that I'm not going to do what they're asking me because he's a friend, he's my boss, he's someone that intimidates me or whatever. This is usually what becomes tough for you. So please always remember that it's better to be feared and respected than to be loved and abused. On that, I stop talking. I hope you enjoyed. I know some people ask me for the link. I don't have it with me, Andy. I'm old. I cannot do both, talk to you and put you the link at the same time. But I'll send it to, I'll send the document in PDF to the Institute, and then they will forward that to you if you want it. So I hope you had some fun. We have 2 more minutes. I saw there was one question in the chat, I think. How are the following situation? What is your stance if there is someone on the board who work at a bank and the board approve investment that goes to the bank? Well, it's called conflict of interest. 3 different level: actual, potential, and appearance. This case you're talking to me is probably appearance of conflict of interest. What the board members should do is to disclose the fact that he might be in an appearance of a conflict of interest. To be in a conflict of interest is not bad. Not to disclose the fact that you might be, this is bad. So the person should just come up and say, oh, by the way, there might be a perception of a conflict of interest. You bring that to the chair will decide what action should be taken from there. If you don't have any more questions, well, thank you very much. I hope that you enjoyed. I was happy because my voice was getting better by the end. I could have done another hour now. I was on a roll. I was unstoppable. But no, I hope you enjoyed.
That was great. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you so much, Mark, for your insights. We hope everyone has enjoyed today's presentation. Please keep an eye on your email for an announcement on the next CPD session, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Thank you.